My name is Melissa Lynch, and I'm 35 years old. When my father celebrated his 60th birthday, my 5-year-old son, who has autism, gave him a painting. My son had worked on it every afternoon for 2 weeks. My father held it up in front of 20 people at his birthday dinner and said it was cheap. I swallowed it. I took his hand and we left quietly. For the next 7 years, my father acted like we didn't exist. No acknowledgement on holidays, no interest in his grandson's life. Then last year, the painting sold at auction for $3 million. My father called me immediately. He didn't ask about my son or apologize for that night. He simply stated that the painting was a gift, and he was entitled to the proceeds. What he doesn't know is that the buyer is someone who has been waiting for exactly this moment, and they have plans for that story. I drove my 2009 Honda Civic into the Ocean View Country Club parking lot at 7:45 p.m. on November 12, 2016. Jamie sat in the back seat, holding the painting we'd wrapped in brown paper with a blue ribbon. He'd been quiet the whole drive. Not his usual quiet, the kind of quiet that happens when he's preparing himself for something difficult. The valet attendant looked at my car like it had wandered into the wrong zip code. Behind us, a black BMW pulled up. Bradley's car. My brother. His wife Vanessa stepped out wearing heels that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Jamie's painting sat wrapped across his lap, 16 inches by 20 inches, blue and gold acrylic. He'd spent 14 afternoons creating it. 2 hours each day, from 2:30 to 4 p.m., in room 103 at the Children's Developmental Center where I work as an art therapist. The valet handed me ticket number 1893. I took Jamie's hand. We walked through the double doors. I should have left then, but I wanted my father to see what his grandson could do. The dining room had 12 tables arranged in a horseshoe. Gerald sat at table 1, the head position, where he always sat, where everyone could see him. A hostess led us to table 7, the back of the room, seats 18 and 19, the last 2 chairs before the kitchen doors. Bradley and Vanessa were already seated at table 1, positions 3 and 4, right next to my father. Gerald wore a navy suit that I knew cost $3,000 because he'd mentioned the price at last year's Thanksgiving, before I stopped attending. Uncle George sat at seat 12 of table 4. He waved when he saw us. George was my father's younger brother, retired teacher, the only person in the family who'd visited Jamie in the past 2 years. 20 guests total. Gerald's lawyer friends, Bradley's business partners, Vanessa's country club set. People whose approval my father valued more than his own grandson. Gerald looked up as we approached. His eyes passed over Jamie like he was part of the furniture. Then he turned to Hugh Sanderson, the lawyer sitting 3 seats away, and laughed at something I couldn't hear. Jamie tugged my sleeve. He wanted to give Grandpa the painting before dinner. I said wait. At 8:15 p.m., Jamie couldn't wait anymore. He slipped out of his chair and walked toward table 1, 22 feet from seat 19 to seat 1. I counted them later in my head, over and over, during the 7 years that followed. He held the painting in both hands. The brown paper crinkled as he walked. Every person in that room turned to watch a 5-year-old boy with autism carry a gift to his grandfather. Jamie stopped beside Gerald's chair. He struggled with the words. It took him 8 seconds to speak 3 words. For you, Grandpa. Gerald smiled. For exactly 3 seconds. He unwrapped the painting while Hugh Sanderson and the others watched. The paper fell away. Blue and gold swirls filled the canvas. Abstract, complex, beautiful. Gerald held it up so everyone could see. Then his smile disappeared. The word came out like he was genuinely concerned, like he was trying to help me understand something important. It's cheap, isn't it? The table went silent. 12 seconds of complete silence. I counted those too. Gerald continued, his voice carried across the room. I mean, it's sweet that he tried, Melissa, but this is, well, It's a bit childish, don't you think? Vanessa smirked. I saw it. Hugh Sanderson cleared his throat. Bradley looked at his plate. Jamie's hand started shaking against my arm. Gerald wasn't finished. You can't seriously expect this to hang in my study with the Rothko, can you? I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. The Rothko. The original painting my father had purchased in 2008 for $85,000. The one he mentioned at every dinner party. The proof that he understood real art. 20 people heard every word, including Jamie. I felt Jamie's fingers dig into my arm. He understood. Every word. I stood up without speaking. I took the painting from my father's hands. I took Jamie's hand. We walked toward the door. Behind me, Uncle George's chair scraped against the floor. The sound was loud. 18 people heard it. George called my name. Melissa, wait! Gerald's voice cut through. Dismissive, final. Let her go, George. She's being dramatic. I didn't turn around. I didn't say goodbye. I kept walking. The valet brought my car in 90 seconds. Ticket 1893. Jamie sat in the back seat and stared at the painting. He didn't cry. I'd expected tears. Instead, he just looked at it. At the blue and gold swirls he'd spent 2 weeks creating. At the gift his grandfather had called cheap. That was the last time I saw my father's face for 7 years, and he never called. We got home at 9:35 p.m. I hung the painting in Jamie's room, on the wall opposite his bed, where he could see it every morning when he woke up. Jamie didn't speak the rest of the night. He went through his bedtime routine, brushed his teeth, put on his pajamas, got into bed, all without a word. I waited for my phone to ring. I thought maybe Gerald would call after the guests left, to explain, to apologize, to say he'd been embarrassed and reacted badly. The call never came. At 11:30 p.m., Uncle George sent a text. I'm so sorry, Melissa. Your father is wrong. That painting is beautiful. Jamie is beautiful. I'm here if you need me. I replied at 7:12 the next morning. Just 2 words. Thank you. That was November 12th, 2016. I didn't hear from my father again until November 18th, 2023. I need to go back further, to explain how we got to that birthday dinner, to explain why my father's words cut so deep. Jamie was born on March 15th, 2011. His father walked out during my pregnancy, left when I was 6 months along. Said he wasn't ready to be a parent. I never heard from him again. I raised Jamie alone. My father helped occasionally in the first year. Small things. A check for $500 here. Babysitting for an hour there. Nothing that required sustained effort. At 18 months, Jamie stopped making eye contact. Stopped responding to his name. The pediatrician referred us to a neurologist. September 2012. The diagnosis came in the neurologist's office. Your son has autism spectrum disorder, moderate severity, early intervention is critical. I called my father from the parking lot. He answered on the 4th ring. How much will that cost? Those were his first words. Not, how is Jamie? Not, how are you? Just the price. $1,200 per month for therapy. My salary as an art therapist was $52,000 a year. After taxes and rent and everything else, I had maybe $200 left at the end of each month. My father offered to pay for therapy, once. Then he saw the first invoice and asked if I'd considered other options. He didn't specify what other options meant. I didn't ask. My brother Bradley graduated from Stanford with an MBA in 2010. My father gave him a position as CEO of the family's real estate development company. Salary, $320,000 per year. I graduated from the Art Institute with a degree in art therapy. My father called it a waste of my education. Said I was coloring with children when I could have been making real money. Between 2013 and 2015, I visited my father's house 3 times. Bradley visited 47 times. Uncle George kept count. He told me later. He said he wanted me to know I wasn't imagining it. Thanksgiving 2013. My father raised his wine glass at the dinner table and announced that Bradley had just closed a $2 million development deal. Then he turned to me. And you're still coloring with children? I stopped going to Thanksgiving after that. The last time I asked my father for help was in 2014. Jamie needed new sensory equipment for therapy. $800. I'd saved $600. I needed $200 more. My father said no. He said Jamie wasn't his responsibility, that I'd chosen this path when I'd chosen to keep Jamie. His exact words. You made your choice. I borrowed the money from Uncle George. George was my father's younger brother, 61 years old in 2016. He'd taught middle school English for 35 years before retiring. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment in a building with brown carpet and flickering hallway lights. He didn't have much money, but every month, starting in 2013, he gave me $200 cash. Exactly what I needed to bridge the gap between Jamie's therapy and my paycheck. Every Saturday, George picked Jamie up and took him to the park. They fed ducks. They walked around the pond. George never treated Jamie like he was broken. He just treated him like a kid who liked ducks. In October 2016, when Jamie decided to paint something for my father's birthday, George told me to keep the painting after, no matter what happened. You'll need it someday, he said. I didn't know what he meant. I wouldn't understand until 7 years later. On October 28, 2016, Jamie's therapist, Dr. Helen Nguyen, suggested we try a new approach. Emotion through art, she called it. Jamie would choose something he felt strongly about and express it through painting. Jamie chose the topic himself. Grandpa's birthday. I was surprised. Jamie had barely seen my father in the past 2 years, maybe 5 visits total, brief ones. My father would stop by for 20 minutes, look uncomfortable the whole time, and leave. But Jamie remembered him. Remembered details I'd forgotten, like my father's favorite colors, blue and gold. Dr. Nguyen asked me if I wanted to stop the project. She could tell I was hesitant. I said no. If Jamie wanted to make something for his grandfather, I'd support it. Jamie's been asking to paint something big, Dr. Nguyen explained. He wants to give it to someone important. He said Grandpa. I asked Jamie what he wanted to paint. He typed his answer on his communication device. Grandpa's heart. I didn't understand what that meant. Jamie painted every afternoon from October 28th to November 10th. Always the same time, 2:30 to 4 p.m. in room 103 at the Children's Developmental Center. He'd chosen a 16 by 20-inch canvas. Not huge, not small. The kind of size you'd hang on a wall in a study or a hallway. He'd chosen 8 colors, but mostly blue and gold. My father's favorites. On day 7, I tried to help. I reached for a brush. Jamie shook his head and typed on his device. My hands only. I sat back and watched. Jamie worked with intense concentration, 83 minutes on average per session. He didn't get distracted, didn't stop in the middle. He was completely absorbed. I started counting his brush strokes. I don't know why. Maybe because I needed something to focus on while I watched him work. 127 strokes total over 14 days. The painting didn't look like anything recognizable. Abstract swirls, blue spiraling into gold, gold folding back into blue, no clear image, no obvious meaning. But there was something organized about it, a pattern I couldn't quite see. On November 10th, at 4:03 p.m., Jamie set down his brush. He looked at the canvas for 30 seconds, then he typed, "Done." Dr. Nguyen stood behind me. We both stared at the painting, blue and gold swirls, chaos and order mixing together. "Do you see it?" Dr. Nguyen whispered. I said no. "You will," she said. She explained something about savant syndrome, about pattern recognition, about how some children with autism see things the rest of us can't, mathematical relationships, emotional structures. Jamie isn't painting what he sees, Dr. Nguyen said. He's painting what he feels. And what he feels is complex. I asked if she thought my father would understand it. Dr. Nguyen paused. 8 seconds. People see what they're ready to see. I wrapped the painting in brown paper, tied it with a blue ribbon. I had no idea that in 7 years, this painting would sell for $3 million. I just knew my son had made something beautiful, and I wanted his grandfather to see it. I've already told you what happened at the party, but I need to tell you again, with all the details, because every detail mattered. We arrived at 7:45 p.m. Gerald was already there, standing near the bar with Hugh Sanderson and 2 other men in expensive suits. They were laughing. Gerald's hand rested on Hugh's shoulder. He saw me walk in. His eyes flicked to me, then to Jamie, then back to his conversation. No wave, no smile, nothing. Bradley and Vanessa arrived at 7:52 p.m., late on purpose. Vanessa liked to make an entrance. She wore a red dress that probably cost more than my car payment. Bradley wore a suit that matched my father's. They'd probably coordinated. Gerald greeted them like visiting royalty. Loud hellos, firm handshakes, introductions to everyone nearby. This is my son Bradley, CEO of Lynch Development, and his wife Vanessa. He didn't introduce us. The hostess led us to table 7. Seats 18 and 19, the back corner. The kind of seats you give to people you invited out of obligation. Uncle George was already seated at table 4, seat 12. He caught my eye and gave me a small wave. It was the only acknowledgement I got for 20 minutes. I watched my father shake hands with 18 people before dinner started. He laughed. He asked about their businesses. He complimented their wives. He never once looked at Jamie. At 8:15 p.m., Jamie couldn't wait anymore. The adults were eating their salads. Conversations hummed around the room. Nobody was paying attention to us in the back corner. Jamie slipped out of his chair. He picked up the painting. The brown paper crinkled loudly in the quiet moment between conversations. 20 heads turned. Jamie walked toward table 1, 22 feet. I counted them later. Every single one. His small hands clutched the painting. His steps were careful, measured, the way he walked when he was trying very hard not to make a mistake. He reached my father's chair. Gerald was mid-sentence, telling Hugh Sanderson something about a property deal. He stopped talking. Everyone stopped talking. The entire room watched a 5-year-old boy with autism try to give his grandfather a gift. Jamie struggled with the words. His mouth moved. No sound came. He tried again. 8 seconds passed. Then he managed it. Very slowly, very carefully. For you, Grandpa, I made. Gerald's face did something complicated. Surprise, maybe. Or confusion. He put down his fork and looked at the package in Jamie's hands. Well, well, he said. His tone was patronizing. The kind of voice you use with a small child who's just shown you a drawing of a stick figure. What do we have here, buddy? He took the painting, unwrapped it in front of everyone. The brown paper fell away. Blue and gold swirls filled the canvas. Gerald smiled. For 3 seconds. A genuine smile. Like maybe he was about to say something kind. Then his smile disappeared. Gerald held up the painting, turned it so Hugh Sanderson could see, then turned it back to himself. It's cheap, isn't it? The words came out thoughtful, concerned, like he was genuinely trying to assess the painting's value and had come to a disappointing conclusion. The table went silent. I counted later. 12 seconds. 12 seconds of absolute quiet while everyone processed what my father had just said to his 5-year-old grandson. Jamie stood there. His hand touched my arm. I felt his fingers trembling. Gerald continued. His voice carried. 20 people heard every word. I mean, it's sweet that he tried, Melissa. But this is, well, it's a bit childish, don't you think? Vanessa smirked. I saw it. A small, satisfied smile. Like she'd been waiting for this moment. Like she'd known my father would say something cruel, and she was enjoying being right. Hugh Sanderson cleared his throat. Uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to say anything. Bradley looked at his plate, his jaw tight, silent. Uncle George's face went red, but he was 12 seats away, too far to intervene. Jamie understood. I know he understood. Because his fingers dug into my arm harder. Because his breathing changed. Because he was 5 years old and his grandfather had just called his gift cheap in front of 20 people. My father wasn't finished. He never knew when to stop. You can't seriously expect this to hang in my study with the Rothko, can you? He looked at Hugh Sanderson when he said it, making sure his lawyer friend understood the comparison. I mean, come on, let's be realistic here. The Rothko, the painting my father had purchased in 2008 for $85,000. He'd mentioned the price at least a dozen times over the years. It hung in his study, the room where he met with clients, the room that was supposed to prove he had taste. His study had 6 paintings total, market value approximately $280,000. He'd calculated it once and told me at Christmas dinner in 2014, right before asking me when I was going to get a real job. Now he was comparing my 5-year-old son's painting to his expensive art collection, and finding it lacking. 20 witnesses heard it, every word, including Jamie. I felt my son's fingers dig into my arm. He understood. Every word. I stood up. I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say. Nothing that would fix this. Nothing that would undo what my father had just done. I took the painting from Gerald's hands. He let it go without resistance, like he was relieved to be rid of it. I took Jamie's hand. We walked toward the door. Behind me, Uncle George stood. His chair scraped against the floor. The sound was loud, violent in the quiet room. 18 people heard it. They all turned to look. Melissa, wait, George called. Gerald, say something. My father's voice cut through. Dismissive, final. Like this was a minor inconvenience and I was overreacting. Let her go, George, she's being dramatic. I didn't stop walking. I didn't turn around. I didn't give anyone the satisfaction of seeing my face. The valet brought my car in 90 seconds. Ticket number 1893. I tipped him $5, all the cash I had in my pocket. Jamie sat in the back seat, silent. He stared at the painting lying next to him. Brown paper torn, blue and gold swirls visible through the gap. I drove home. Jamie didn't cry. I kept looking in the rearview mirror, waiting for tears. They never came. He just stared at the painting, at the 2 weeks of work, at the gift his grandfather had called cheap. I hung the painting in Jamie's room at 9:35 p.m. on the wall opposite his bed, the first thing he'd see every morning. Jamie went through his bedtime routine without speaking, brushed his teeth, put on his dinosaur pajamas, climbed into bed, his eyes fixed on the painting. I sat in the living room, phone in my hand, waiting for it to ring. Surely Gerald would call, once the guests left, once he'd had time to think, once he realized what he'd done. The call never came. At 11:30 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Uncle George. I'm so sorry, Melissa. Your father is wrong. That painting is beautiful. Jamie is beautiful. I'm here if you need me. I replied the next morning at 7:12 a.m. 2 words. Thank you. I didn't hear from my father for 7 years. December 2016. Christmas was 2 weeks away. I waited for my father to call, to acknowledge what had happened, to apologize. The phone stayed silent. No Christmas card, no gift for Jamie, no call on Christmas morning. On December 23rd, Bradley called. The conversation lasted 2 minutes and 18 seconds. I remember because I watched the timer on my phone screen. Look, Bradley said, Dad's still upset about the scene you made. Maybe if you apologized. For what? I asked. You know what I mean. I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to my brother for 7 years. My father didn't call. Not on Christmas. Not on Jamie's 6th birthday in March. Not ever. I realized something in January 2017. My father wasn't going to call. He was waiting for me to apologize. He genuinely believed I was the one who'd been wrong. I didn't apologize, and Gerald cut me out of his life like I'd never existed. 2017 passed in silence. 0 phone calls from my father, 0 birthday cards, 0 gifts, 0 acknowledgement that I had ever been his daughter or that Jamie had ever been his grandson. In May 2017, Jamie had a school play. He didn't have lines. He stood on stage and held a cardboard tree. But he stood there for 8 minutes without running off. For a 5-year-old with autism, it was huge. Uncle George came. He sat in the front row and clapped so hard his hands turned red. My father didn't come. I hadn't invited him. But part of me hoped he might hear about it somehow, might show up. He didn't. Uncle George told me later that my father asked about me sometimes, then stopped himself, like he was afraid of showing weakness. "Did he ask about Jamie?" I said. Uncle George didn't answer. That told me everything. Bradley visited my father 52 times that year. Uncle George counted. He kept a list. He showed it to me in July. Names and dates. Proof that I wasn't imagining the favoritism. Proof that my father had chosen which son mattered. Uncle George visited me every Sunday. 52 visits. He gave me $200 cash each month, $2,400 over the course of the year, more than he could afford. He never asked for it back. In December 2017, Uncle George told me something strange. He said my father kept one thing from the birthday dinner, the brown wrapping paper from Jamie's painting. "He has it in his desk drawer," George said. "I saw it when I was looking for a pen." I didn't know what to do with that information. It didn't change anything. Gerald still hadn't called. 2018, 2019, 2020. The years blurred together. 0 calls, 0 visits, 0 acknowledgement. In June 2019, Bradley got married. The invitation went to 150 people. Melissa Lynch was not on the list. I heard about it from Uncle George. He offered not to go. In solidarity, I told him to go. Someone needed to represent my side of the family. Someone needed to witness. The wedding was at the Ocean View Country Club, the same place as my father's 60th birthday. Bradley and Vanessa stood at the altar where table 1 had been, where Gerald had called my son's painting cheap. My father gave a speech. Uncle George recorded it on his phone and played it for me later. I shouldn't have listened, but I did. "My son Bradley," Gerald said, his voice proud and clear. "The son who made me proud every single day. The son who understood what family means." I was his daughter, but apparently I didn't understand what family means. In October 2019, my father had a minor stroke. Nothing life-threatening, but scary enough that it should have been a wake-up call. Bradley didn't tell me until October 29th, 21 days after it happened. "I didn't want to bother you," Bradley said when I called him, furious. "Dad's fine now. He didn't want to worry you." Dad didn't want to worry me. As if we'd been in regular contact. As if he'd been a present father and grandfather. As if the past 3 years of silence hadn't happened. During those years, Jamie asked about his grandfather 14 times. The questions broke my heart every time. "Why doesn't Grandpa visit? Did I do something wrong? Is Grandpa sick?" In November 2019, when Jamie was 8, he typed a question on his device. "Did I make Grandpa sad? Is painting still bad?" I held him and lied. "No, honey. Grandpa just can't see how special you are yet." In 2020, I stopped expecting my father to change. I accepted that this was permanent, that Gerald had made his choice, that I'd lost my father the night he called my son's painting cheap. That's when Jamie started painting again. Between 2020 and 2023, something extraordinary happened. Jamie's vocabulary grew from 12 words to 89 words. His paintings multiplied, 23 pieces total, abstract, beautiful, complex. Dr. Nguyen told me in 2021, Melissa, I need you to understand something. Jamie's art isn't just therapy anymore. It's communication. And what he's communicating? It's profound. In 2022, a local art teacher named Mrs. Abigail Foster started volunteering at the Children's Developmental Center. She was in her 60s. Gray hair, kind eyes. She taught art at the local high school for 30 years before retiring. She saw Jamie's work and asked if she could mentor him. 2 hours a week. Free. She said it was her retirement project. Jamie flourished under her guidance. His patterns became more complex, his color choices more deliberate. Mrs. Foster said he had an intuitive understanding of emotional color theory that most adult artists never developed. In September 2022, Mrs. Foster asked if she could show Jamie's work to a colleague, a professor at the Art Institute of Chicago. I said yes. I didn't know that decision would change everything. On October 3, 2023, at 7:42 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I'd learned to ignore unknown numbers. They were usually spam. But something made me pick up. Melissa? The voice was familiar. Female. Warm, but professional. This is Catherine Whitfield. I don't know if you remember me, but I taught your modern art seminar in 2007. I need to talk to you about your son's painting. Catherine Whitfield. Dr. Catherine Whitfield. My professor from 15 years ago. The woman who taught me that art wasn't just about beauty, it was about truth. About making people see what they'd been blind to. I hadn't spoken to her since 2009, since graduation. I saw Jamie's work, Catherine said. Mrs. Foster is an old friend. She sent me photos last month. Melissa, your son is extraordinary. We talked for 33 minutes. Catherine explained that she was now the director of the Chicago Museum of Modern Art. That she'd been following Jamie's development through Mrs. Foster. That she had an idea. The painting Jamie made when he was 5, Catherine said. The one for your father's birthday. Mrs. Foster mentioned it. Do you still have it? Yes, I said. It's in his room. Why? I want to auction it. She explained the plan. Sotheby's auction. Emerging Voices Under 18 collection. Estimated value between $300,000 and $500,000. I couldn't breathe. $500,000. For a painting my father had called cheap. Why do you think it's worth that much? I asked. Catherine paused. 8 seconds, the longest pause in our conversation. Because I've studied it, Melissa. Mrs. Foster sent me detailed photos. I've analyzed the pattern work, the color theory, the mathematical precision in what looks like chaos. Your son is a savant, and that painting, it's a masterpiece. Then she asked the question that changed everything. Does your father know about this? I told her briefly about that night. The word cheap, the 20 witnesses, the 7 years of silence. Catherine listened. 8 seconds of silence after I finished. Melissa, she said, her voice different now, harder. Does he know about this auction? No, I said. We haven't spoken in 7 years. Why? Let's keep it that way, for now. Catherine and I talked for another 20 minutes. She reminded me of things I'd half forgotten. That I'd been her student from 2005 to 2009. That I'd gotten a B+ in her modern art seminar in 2007. That she'd written me a recommendation letter for the art therapy program. You were one of the most intuitive students I ever taught, Catherine said. When you left art for therapy work, I understood, but I never stopped hoping you'd come back to it somehow. She told me she'd become director of the Chicago Museum in 2018, 5 years ago. She'd built her reputation on discovering new talent, on giving voice to artists the traditional art world overlooked. I saw Jamie's painting on Mrs. Foster's Instagram, Catherine said. September 28th. She'd posted a photo of him working. The painting was in the background. I recognized something in it immediately. "What did you recognize?" I asked. "The same thing I recognized in your work 15 years ago," she said. "Truth." Catherine laid out the plan. Jamie's original painting, the one from November 12, 2016, would be included in Sotheby's Emerging Voices Under 18 auction. November 18, 2023, 6 weeks away. Estimated value, $300,000 to $500,000. Maybe more if bidding got competitive, standard 12% commission. The rest would go to the artist, to Jamie. "The money goes into a trust fund," Catherine said. "Jamie's future, his education, his care, whatever he needs." I couldn't process the numbers. $500,000. Even after commission, that was $440,000. More money than I'd earn in 8 years. "Why are you doing this?" I asked. Catherine was quiet for a moment. "Because 15 years ago, you were a talented artist who gave it up to help children like Jamie. Because I've watched too many brilliant minds get dismissed because they don't fit conventional definitions. Because your father called that painting cheap and he was wrong. And because—" She paused. "Because I can." "Melissa," Catherine said, her tone shifting, "I need to ask you something." "What exactly happened that night? At your father's birthday?" I told her. All of it. The 20 witnesses, Gerald holding up the painting, the word cheap, the comparison to the Rothko, Jamie's fingers digging into my arm, the silent exit, 7 years of nothing. When I finished, Catherine was quiet for 8 seconds. The silence stretched. I could hear her breathing through the phone. "Does he know about the auction?" she asked. "No," I said. "Why would he? We haven't spoken." "Good," Catherine said. Her voice was firm, final. "Let's keep it that way, for now." "Why?" "Because," Catherine said, "I'm planning something, and I need you to trust me." 2 days later, on October 5th, at 9:15 a.m., Catherine emailed me the consignment contract. 12 pages of legal language. I read every word 3 times. Clause 7.3 caught my attention. 100% of net proceeds shall be deposited directly into the Jamie Lynch Special Needs Trust Fund. Consignor waives all right to proceeds and directs funds exclusively to benefit of minor child. I called Catherine. "This clause means I don't get any of the money." "That's correct," Catherine said. "The painting was Jamie's. The money should be Jamie's. Do you disagree?" I didn't. I signed the contract on October 7th at 3:22 p.m. and scanned it back to her. The next day, October 8th, Catherine sent another email. Short, cryptic. "One more thing. I'm planning something for after the sale. You'll understand when the time comes. Trust me." I didn't know what she meant, but I'd trusted Catherine 15 years ago when she'd told me I had talent. She'd been right then. I decided to trust her now. For 6 weeks, I kept the secret. I didn't tell my father. I didn't tell Bradley. I didn't post about it on social media. I didn't tell anyone except Uncle George, and I swore him to silence. On November 10th, Sotheby's published the auction catalog. Jamie's painting was Lot 24. Listed as Untitled, Blue and Gold, 2016, Jamie Lynch, age 5 at creation, acrylic on canvas, 16 by 20 inches. Estimated price, $400,000 to $600,000. The catalog description read, "A rare example of savant syndrome artistic expression. The artist, diagnosed with autism at 18 months, demonstrates extraordinary pattern recognition and emotional depth in this early work." Uncle George called that evening. "The catalog is online," he said. "Your father will see it eventually." "I know," I said. "Are you ready?" "No," I said. "But it doesn't matter. This is happening." I wasn't ready. But ready or not, November 18th was coming. The catalog went live on November 10th, 2023. 127 lots total. Jamie's painting was number 24, featured on page 34. By the next morning, Uncle George had seen it. By that afternoon, 3 people had texted me screenshots. By evening, Mrs. Foster had posted about it on Instagram. By the next day, everyone knew, except my father. Somehow Gerald Lynch, the man who prided himself on being connected, on knowing everything about art and culture and money, didn't see the Sotheby's catalog. Or maybe he saw it and didn't make the connection. Maybe he didn't remember a 5-year-old boy's name. Maybe he'd erased Jamie so thoroughly from his mind that the name Jamie Lynch in a Sotheby's catalog meant nothing to him. I waited for the phone to ring. It didn't. On November 15th, 3 days before the auction, Bradley called. The first time in 7 years. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. "Melissa, it's Bradley. I saw something in an auction catalog. A painting by someone named Jamie Lynch. Is that your Jamie? Call me back." I didn't call back. November 18th, 2023, 6 p.m. I pulled up to Sotheby's at 1334 York Avenue in New York. Jamie sat beside me in the passenger seat. He was 12 now. Taller, quieter. Still mostly nonverbal, but his vocabulary had grown. 89 words he could speak, hundreds more he could type. Catherine met us at a side entrance. She wore a black suit and her hair was pulled back. Professional. But her eyes were warm when she hugged me. "Are you ready?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "Good," she said. "Honesty is better than confidence." She led us backstage, through hallways lined with paintings worth millions, past staff members in black shirts carrying clipboards, into a private room with a couch and a monitor showing the auction floor. "There are 12 news outlets here tonight," Catherine said. "Vogue, Art News, The Times. When this sells, Jamie's story goes public. The press will want to talk to you." "I don't want to talk to the press," I said. "You don't have to," Catherine said. "I'll handle them. I'll handle everything. All you have to do is trust me." At 7:15 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I'd see it was Bradley. At 7:30 p.m., the auction started. I watched on the monitor. 156 registered bidders, 82 in the room, 74 by phone. Jamie sat beside me, his hands folded in his lap, watching the screen. We waited for lot 24. At 8:22 p.m., the auctioneer called lot 24. Next, we have Untitled Blue and Gold by Jamie Lynch, created at age 5 by an artist with autism spectrum disorder. A remarkable example of savant pattern recognition. Shall we start at 500,000? A paddle went up immediately. Number 23. 500,000. Do I hear 6? Another paddle. Number 65. 600? 7? Phone bidder number 103. 700? 8? The bids climbed. 800,000, 900,000, 1 million. Jamie's hand found mine, his fingers cold, shaking slightly. 1,000,002, 1,000,005, 1,000,008. Phone bidder 156 came in aggressive at 2 million. Paddle 91 countered. 2,000,002. Phone bidder 156 again. 2,000,005. The room went quiet. Paddle 91 shook his head. Done. 2,500,000, the auctioneer said. Any advance on 2,000,005? Phone bidder 134 raised. 2,000,006. Phone bidder 156 didn't hesitate. 2,000,008. 2,800,000, the auctioneer said. Last call. Phone bidder 134 went to 2,009,000. Phone bidder 156 paused. 10 seconds. Then, 3 million. The room gasped. I heard it through the monitor, a collective intake of breath. $3 million, the auctioneer said. Going once, going twice, sold to phone bidder 156. The room erupted in applause. Jamie covered his ears. The sound was too loud, too much. $3 million. For a painting my father had called cheap. At 9:33 p.m., my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Saw the name. My father. For the first time in 7 years, Gerald Lynch was calling me. I stepped into the hallway, answered the phone. Melissa. No greeting, no, how are you? Just my name, flat, demanding. I just saw Sotheby's post the results online. $3 million. That painting was a birthday gift. Legally, it belongs to me. I expect you to transfer the funds when they clear. I didn't speak. Are you listening? Gerald said. I heard you, I said. I hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Bradley. I didn't answer. Then another call. A number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. Later, I'd learn it was Hugh Sanderson, my father's lawyer, the same lawyer who'd sat 3 tables away while Gerald humiliated my son. I went back to the private room. Catherine was waiting. She closed the door behind me. He called, I said. I know, Catherine said. I expected it. How did you— Melissa, Catherine interrupted. Phone bidder 156 has a request. They want to meet you in person. At the exhibition opening. December 15th, Chicago. They have a statement to make. Who is it? I asked. Catherine smiled. A small, enigmatic smile. The same smile she'd given me 15 years ago when I'd asked her if my final project was good enough, right before she'd given me an A. Someone who's been waiting for this moment as long as I have, she said. I woke up on November 19th to 6 voicemails. Gerald, 11:47 p.m. the night before. Melissa, call me back. We need to discuss this situation. Gerald again, 7:05 a.m. I know you're avoiding me. This is not going away. That money is legally mine and I will pursue it. Bradley, 6:33 a.m. Melissa, pick up. Dad's going crazy. Just call him back. Bradley, 8:12 a.m. This is ridiculous. $3 million. You can't just ignore us. Bradley, 9:01 a.m. Look, I get it. You're mad at Dad, but $3 million? Come on, just give him half and move on. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You don't want a legal battle. Think about Jamie. Think about what the press would say. Hugh Sanderson, 8:45 a.m. Ms. Lynch, this is Hugh Sanderson from Sanderson and Klein. I represent your father regarding a legal matter. Please return this call at your earliest convenience. I deleted 5 of the voicemails, but I listened to Bradley's last one 3 times. Think about Jamie. Think about what the press would say. My brother, using my son as a threat, suggesting I should pay our father to avoid bad publicity. I didn't call anyone back. At 9:01 a.m., Bradley's voicemail had said, just give him half. Half of $3 million. $1.5 million. As if it were that simple. As if 7 years of silence could be erased with money. As if my son's dignity had a price and that price was 50%. Bradley had mentioned Jamie twice in that voicemail, both times as leverage. Think about Jamie. You don't want him dragged through a lawsuit, do you? My brother had asked about Jamie's well-being exactly 0 times in 7 years, but now he cared. Now, when there was money involved, suddenly Jamie mattered. I thought about calling Bradley back, telling him exactly what I thought of his advice, but I didn't. Instead, I called Uncle George. George picked up on the first ring, like he'd been waiting by the phone. I saw the sale, he said immediately. Melissa, I'm so proud of Jamie, but listen. He called, I said. I know. He called me at 6 this morning. He's talking lawyers. He actually said— George paused. He said, I gave that boy a platform and now he owes me. Those were his exact words. I closed my eyes. Of course. Of course my father thought he'd given Jamie a platform by accepting his gift, by holding it up in front of 20 people and calling it cheap. By traumatizing a 5-year-old child. That was the platform. Hugh Sanderson is already researching case law, George continued. Gift doctrine. Transfer of ownership. Your father thinks he has a legal claim. Does he? I asked. I don't know, George said. But he's going to try. Melissa, let me talk to him. No, I said. Don't, please, I need to handle this myself. George was quiet for a moment. Then, Catherine called me yesterday. She told me to tell you, don't worry, she has a plan. What plan? She didn't say, just that I should tell you not to worry, and that everything will make sense on December 15th. December 15th, the exhibition opening, the meeting with phone bidder 156, 3.5 weeks away. On November 20th, at 10:15 a.m., a courier delivered a certified letter. I signed for it. The return address, Sanderson and Klein LLP, Park Avenue. I opened it at my kitchen table while Jamie ate breakfast. Dear Ms. Lynch, it began. This firm represents Mr. Gerald Lynch regarding the painting titled Untitled, Blue and Gold, sold November 18th, 2023, for $3 million. I kept reading. Legal language, gift doctrine, transfer of ownership upon delivery. 20 witnesses who could verify the painting had been given to Gerald Lynch on November 12, 2016. Under applicable gift law doctrine, ownership transferred to Mr. Lynch at the moment of delivery and acceptance. The subsequent sale of said property without Mr. Lynch's consent constitutes conversion of his property. We demand full remittance of sale proceeds within 72 hours, or legal action will be initiated. 72 hours, 3 days. By November 23rd at 10:15 a.m., I was supposed to give my father $3 million. The letter was 3 pages long, formal, threatening, signed by Hugh Sanderson, the same man who'd sat at table 6 and watched Gerald humiliate Jamie and said nothing. I had 72 hours to respond. I called Catherine. Catherine answered in 2 rings, like she'd been waiting for my call. He sent the letter, I said. I know, Catherine said. I expected it. Melissa, breathe. I've been planning for this scenario for 3 years. 3 years? Your father rejected the painting in front of witnesses, Catherine continued. He handed it back to you. He called it cheap and dismissed it publicly. Legally, the gift was never accepted. Ownership remained with Jamie. Hugh Sanderson knows this. He's bluffing. How do you know? Because I consulted the museum's legal team 3 days before the auction. We anticipated this exact response. The legal opinion is clear. Gift rejection equals no ownership transfer. Your father has no claim. I felt something release in my chest. Air I'd been holding. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I needed you to react naturally when he called. I needed your father to believe he had a case. I needed him to commit to this path. What path? The path to December 15th, Catherine said. Melissa, trust me. Everything will make sense on December 15th. I hung up and read the letter again. 72 hours. I didn't respond. November 20th, November 21st, November 22nd, November 23rd. 72 hours. The deadline Hugh Sanderson had given me. I let it pass without responding. My father called 11 times during those 3 days. I didn't answer. Bradley sent 8 texts. I read them all. I responded to none. Bradley's texts alternated between reasonable and accusatory. Just talk to Dad. This doesn't have to be complicated. You're being selfish. Think about the family. $3 million and you can't even call back? You're really going to let this go to court over money you didn't even earn? On November 21st at 4:02 p.m., I replied to that last one. 5 words. Neither am I. Uncle George visited every day. He brought coffee on day 1, sandwiches on day 2, just his presence on day 3. On November 23rd at 10:15 a.m., the deadline expired. I'd sent no response, no money, no acknowledgement. At 10:16 a.m., exactly 1 minute after the deadline, my phone rang. It wasn't Gerald, it wasn't Bradley, it wasn't Hugh Sanderson. It was a reporter. Ms. Lynch, this is Jessica Alvarez from Art News. I'm calling about the Sotheby's sale. Your father gave us a statement claiming the painting was his property, and you've refused to honor his ownership. He's calling it theft. Would you like to respond? I stood in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear. processing what she'd just said. My father had gone to the press. No comment, I said. I hung up and immediately opened my phone's browser, searched for art news, found the article published at 9 a.m. that morning. The headline, Family Dispute Erupts Over $3 Million Autism Artist Painting. I read it. Every word, every lie. The article featured an interview with my father. He'd given it on November 22nd, the evening after the deadline. His version of events was unrecognizable. My grandson made me that painting with love. I treasured it for 7 years. Then my daughter took it without permission and sold it for millions. I just want what's rightfully mine. Not the money, I don't need the money. It's the principle. Family should mean something. Family should mean something. My father, who hadn't called in 7 years, who'd skipped every birthday and holiday, who'd made his grandson feel worthless, was now telling the press that family should mean something. The article continued. Gerald positioned himself as the loving grandfather, the victim of an estranged daughter. He claimed he'd cherished the painting, displayed it proudly, treasured it as a symbol of his grandson's talent. He omitted one word: cheap. He omitted the 20 witnesses, the public humiliation, the comparison to the Rothko, the 7 years of silence. He spun the story as ungrateful daughter profits from elderly father's generosity. Poor widowed father taken advantage of by money-hungry child. The article had been published for 2 hours. 847 shares. 156 comments. I read the comments. Most people believed him. This is disgusting. How could she do that to her own father? Family is everything. She should be ashamed. The father sounds heartbroken. I hope he gets his money. A few comments questioned his story. Why did he wait 7 years to claim ownership? Something doesn't add up here. But they were drowned out by the majority. My father had gotten ahead of the story. He'd controlled the narrative, and people believed him. For the first time in 7 years, I felt like giving up. At 2:30 p.m. on November 23rd, Catherine called. I saw the article, she said. He lied, I said. He lied about everything. I know, Catherine said. Melissa, I need to tell you something. 3 years ago, George told me what happened at that birthday dinner. The word cheap, the witnesses, all of it. I've been preparing for this moment ever since. What do you mean? I didn't just buy Jamie's painting at auction, Catherine said. I bought the opportunity to tell the truth, in front of everyone. I've been documenting Jamie's development since 2020, working with Mrs. Foster, building a record, preparing. Your phone bidder 156, I said. It wasn't a question. Yes. You paid $3 million. For the truth, Catherine said, and for Jamie's future, and for you, because 15 years ago, you were one of my best students and life gave you an impossible choice. You chose your son. I'm choosing to help you both. I sat down, processing. December 15th, Catherine said. The exhibition opening, Chicago Museum, 300 invited guests, 15 press outlets, including Jessica Alvarez from Art News. Your father's interview will be corrected, publicly, with evidence, with Jamie's voice, with the truth. How? I asked. Trust me, Catherine said. Just a little longer. December 15th, 2023. The Chicago Museum of Modern Art, Grand Hall. Emerging Voices exhibition. Catherine had been planning this for months, maybe years. The exhibition featured 12 young artists, all under 18, all brilliant, all overlooked by traditional art spaces. Jamie's painting was the centerpiece, hung on a 20-foot wall, solo spotlight, blue and gold swirls visible from across the room. 300 people had been invited. Art collectors, museum donors, critics, journalists, university professors, people who mattered in the art world. 15 press outlets confirmed attendance, including Art News, including Jessica Alvarez, the woman who'd published my father's lies. Catherine's speech was scheduled for 8 p.m. She'd told me nothing about what she planned to say, only that I should be there, that Jamie should be backstage, that I should trust her. At 10 a.m. that morning, Catherine texted me. Tonight, Melissa, everything you've carried for 7 years ends tonight. Jamie's painting will speak for itself, and so will I. I didn't know what she meant. I went anyway. At 7:30 p.m., I was backstage in a small room with Jamie, watching the grand hall on a monitor, guests arriving, champagne being served, people gathering around Jamie's painting. At 7:30 p.m., exactly, I saw him. My father. Gerald Lynch, 67 years old now. Gray hair, expensive suit. Tom Ford, $3,200. I knew because he'd worn the same brand at Bradley's wedding. He was with Bradley and Vanessa. They entered together, a united front. My father walked directly to Jamie's painting, positioned himself in front of it, started talking to nearby guests. I couldn't hear him through the monitor, but I could read his body language, expansive gestures, proud posture, the stance of a man who believed he owned something valuable. Uncle George texted me at 7:45 p.m. Your father just RSVP'd. Bradley told him about tonight. I'm sorry, I tried to keep it quiet. I texted back. It's okay, Catherine knew he'd come. For the next 15 minutes, I watched my father on the monitor. He talked to 8 different guests, positioned himself prominently, made sure everyone saw him standing in front of his grandson's painting. At 8 p.m., I heard him. The audio on the monitor picked up his voice. He was talking to a woman in a red dress, loud enough for surrounding people to hear. Yes, that's my grandson's painting. Extraordinary talent, isn't it? Autism is such a fascinating condition. We've always supported his artistic development. We, always, supported. 7 years of zero support. But in front of 300 witnesses, my father was rewriting history. Uncle George found me backstage at 7:55 p.m. Your father's telling everyone he funded Jamie's art education. Let him, I said. George looked surprised. Catherine has a plan, I said. Let him lie. Let him commit. It'll make what's coming next even better. At 8 p.m. exactly, Catherine took the podium. Catherine wore a navy suit, her gray hair pulled back. She looked professional, authoritative, like someone you'd trust with the truth. Good evening, she said. Her voice carried across the grand hall. 300 people went quiet. Thank you all for attending the opening of Emerging Voices. This exhibition celebrates 12 artists under 18 who see the world differently, who create beauty from perspectives society often overlooks, who prove that genius comes in many forms. I watched my father on the monitor. He stood 15 feet from the podium, arms crossed, satisfied expression, like this speech was vindicating him. But one piece in particular, Catherine continued, represents something more than artistic talent. It represents the moment we choose what we value. Money, status, or the truth. The room shifted. The tone had changed. People leaned forward. Catherine looked directly at my father. I'd like to tell you a story about this painting. On November 12, 2016, Catherine said, a 5-year-old boy with autism spent his final afternoon completing a painting. He'd worked on it for 2 weeks. 2 hours every afternoon. 14 days total. 127 brushstrokes. The room was completely silent. 6 cameras recorded. 1,200 people watched via live stream on the museum's website. The boy was mostly nonverbal, Catherine continued. He struggled to communicate, but he wanted to give his grandfather a gift. He remembered his grandfather's favorite colors from 2 years prior, blue and gold. So he painted with blue and gold. He created something beautiful, something meaningful, something that took every ounce of his concentration and skill. I watched my father's face on the monitor. The confidence was fading, replaced by something else. Uncertainty, maybe fear. He gave his grandfather the painting at a birthday party, Catherine said. 20 witnesses were present. The grandfather unwrapped the gift in front of all of them. He looked at the painting for 8 seconds. Then he held it up, and he said one word. Catherine paused. The silence stretched. 4 seconds. 5. 6. Cheap. The word dropped like a stone. The audience reacted. Audible gasps, murmurs, shock. He called his 5-year-old grandson's painting cheap, Catherine said, in front of 20 people, including the boy himself, who understood every word, who spent 2 weeks creating something with love, who chose his grandfather's favorite colors, who gave everything he had, and his grandfather called it cheap. I watched my father on the monitor. His face had gone pale. 6 cameras captured it. 1,200 people watched online. Bradley pulled Vanessa's arm, trying to leave, but they were blocked by other guests. Catherine wasn't done. The boy and his mother left that night, quietly, without making a scene. And do you know what happened next? For 7 years, the grandfather never called, never visited, never sent a birthday card or a Christmas gift, never acknowledged that his grandson existed. 7 years of silence, 0 contact. Until... Catherine smiled, small, cold, satisfied. Until last month, when this painting sold at Sotheby's for $3 million. Then the grandfather called, immediately. He claimed the painting was his property. He hired lawyers. He went to the press. He told a story about being a loving grandfather betrayed by an ungrateful daughter. He said he treasured this painting for 7 years. He said family should mean something. The room was completely silent. Every eye on my father, every camera aimed at his face. The grandfather is here tonight, Catherine said. Mr. Lynch, would you like to respond? My father stepped forward, his face red, his jaw tight. Excuse me, he said loudly, interrupting. This is a misunderstanding. That painting was a gift, to me, and it's been misrepresented. Catherine held firm. She didn't yield the microphone, but she gestured to him, inviting him to continue. Actually, she said, let him speak. Everyone deserves to hear both sides. Mr. Lynch, the floor is yours. Security guards moved closer. 2 of them, positioned 10 feet away, just in case. My father took the microphone. All 6 cameras focused on him. 1,200 online viewers watched. He was used to being in control, used to commanding rooms, used to people listening when he spoke. I think there's been a significant misunderstanding here, he said. His voice was measured, careful. That painting was a gift, to me, from my grandson. Yes, perhaps I didn't express my appreciation properly that night. It was a stressful evening. I had business associates present. I may not have responded as warmly as I should have. He was admitting nothing, minimizing everything. But that painting was legally mine, he continued, and I'd like to know who authorized this public spectacle about my private family matter. This is inappropriate. I authorized it, Catherine said, calm, clear, cutting through his speech. Because I'm the buyer, Gerald. The room went silent. Complete silence. 300 people holding their breath. Phone bidder 156, Catherine said. That was me. I paid $3 million for this painting. My father's face registered shock. Genuine surprise. He hadn't known. I was Melissa's professor 15 years ago, Catherine continued. I've been watching Jamie's development for 3 years, working with his art teacher, documenting his progress, and I bought this painting because I know what it represents. I know what you can't see. Gerald's voice came out strained. What do I not see? Catherine smiled. Let me show you. Catherine gestured to her tech team. The lights dimmed. A large screen descended from the ceiling, 20 feet wide, impossible to miss. This is Jamie Lynch today, Catherine said. Age 12, still mostly nonverbal, but he has something to say about his painting. My father stood frozen. Bradley had stopped trying to leave. Vanessa's face was pale. Jamie can't speak easily, Catherine continued, but he can type. And 3 weeks ago, on November 20th, the same day your lawyer sent that letter, Mr. Lynch, we recorded this. The screen lit up, and there was Jamie, sitting in a quiet room at the museum, a keyboard in front of him, his face calm, focused. The video was 4 minutes and 12 seconds long. I'd watched it during editing. I'd cried through all 4 minutes. Now, 300 people were about to see it, including my father. The video opened with Jamie's hands on the keyboard. Text appeared on screen as he typed. Melissa's voice, my voice, narrated the words softly. My name is Jamie Lynch. I am 12 years old. I have autism. The words were simple, clear. Jamie had written them himself. When I was 5, I made a painting for my grandfather's birthday. I spent 14 afternoons on it, October 28th to November 10th, 2016. The screen showed photos of the painting in progress. Mrs. Foster had taken them. Day 1, Day 7, Day 14. I chose blue because I felt sad that Grandpa didn't visit me. I chose gold because I hoped he would love it. I wanted to show him what I see inside when I think about family. I watched my father on the monitor. His jaw was clenched. His hands were fists. I worked 2 hours every day, 2:30 to 4 p.m., room 103, Children's Developmental Center. My mom was there. Dr. Nguyen was there. They didn't help me paint. They just watched. The screen showed Jamie at 5 years old, paintbrush in hand, focused on the canvas, the blue and gold swirls taking shape. Then Jamie's text changed. I remember what happened at the party. I remember the dinner. November 12th, 2016. Ocean View Country Club, Table 7, seats 18 and 19. The detail was precise, exact, the kind of detail a neurotypical person might not remember. But Jamie remembered everything. I counted 20 people at the party. I gave Grandpa the painting. He unwrapped it. He looked at it for 8 seconds. Then he said it was cheap. The word appeared on screen. Cheap. Large letters. Impossible to miss. I know what cheap means. It means not good enough. It means not valuable. It means I'm not valuable. 300 people watched in silence. No coughs. No shuffling. Complete stillness. We left. Mom took my hand. We drove home. She hung the painting in my room. Grandpa never called. Jamie's hands paused on the keyboard. 2 seconds. Then continued. I counted the days. From November 12th, 2016 to November 18th, 2023. That's 2,556 days. Grandpa didn't call for 2,556 days. The number appeared on screen. 2,556. I glanced at my father on the monitor. His face had drained of color. Bradley had his head down. Vanessa was crying, but Jamie wasn't finished. I want to explain what the painting means. The screen split, Jamie on one side, the painting on the other, side by side. The painting has 127 brushstrokes. I counted them. Each stroke means something. Lines appeared on the painting image, highlighting specific swirls, blue, gold, the places where they intersected. The blue spirals represent 1,278 days. That's how long I waited for Grandpa to visit before the party, from when I was born until I was 5. The camera zoomed in on the blue swirls. They weren't random. They followed a mathematical pattern, Fibonacci sequence. Dr. Nguyen had identified it later. Jamie hadn't known what Fibonacci was. He'd just felt it. The gold spirals represent 23 times. That's how many times I asked Mom when Grandpa would come, before I stopped asking. The gold swirls, precisely 23 of them, spiraling from the center outward. The place where blue and gold touch, right here. That's the moment when sadness and hope meet. When you're sad but you still hope. When it hurts, but you still love. The camera focused on the center of the painting, where blue and gold intertwined. creating something new, something beautiful. That place is called love, Jamie's text said. I painted love for my grandfather. He called it cheap. The room was silent. Absolutely silent. 6 seconds of no sound, no movement, nothing. Then someone gasped. A woman near the front. The sound broke the spell. Murmurs spread through the room. 300 people processing what they'd just learned. The painting wasn't random. It was mathematical, emotional, precise. It was genius. And Gerald Lynch had called it cheap. Jamie's hands moved on the keyboard again. The final section. I want to ask my grandfather a question. The room held its breath. Why did you call my love cheap? The question hung in the air, on the screen, in the silence. Did I do something wrong? I tried so hard. I spent 14 days. I used your favorite colors. I painted what I felt. Was that wrong? My father's face on the monitor showed tears. Actual tears. Running down his cheeks. 6 cameras captured it. Maybe you were afraid of me because I'm different. People are afraid of things they don't understand. I don't understand why you stopped loving me for 2,556 days. Jamie's final sentence appeared. But I still love you. Does that make me cheap too? The text stayed on screen. 8 seconds. Then the video ended. The screen showed Jamie's face, 12 years old, looking directly at the camera. His expression neutral. No anger, no sadness, just the question. Does that make me cheap too? The screen went dark. 300 people stood frozen, and my father's face was covered in tears. Catherine returned to the podium. The room was still silent, shocked into stillness by Jamie's video. When I bought this painting for $3 million, Catherine said, her voice clear and strong, I did so with one condition, a contract clause that was non-negotiable. She held up a document. Official. Stamped. Legal. 100% of the proceeds, $2,640,000 after commission, goes directly into a trust fund for Jamie Lynch, the Jamie Lynch Special Needs Trust Fund, managed by an independent trustee, irrevocable, permanent. She looked at my father, who stood motionless, tears still on his face. The fund will pay for Jamie's education, his therapy, his art supplies, his future, everything he needs to continue creating, to continue communicating, to continue showing us what the world looks like through his eyes. Catherine's voice hardened. Mr. Lynch, you claimed legal ownership of this painting, but legally, a gift requires acceptance. You rejected this gift publicly, in front of 20 witnesses. You called it cheap and handed it back. Ownership never transferred. The painting remained Jamie's property. Your lawyer knows this. He's been bluffing. Hugh Sanderson, sitting in the 4th row, looked at his hands, saying nothing. More importantly, Catherine continued, you have no moral claim, no right to this boy's work, no right to his love, no right to profit from the talent you dismissed. She paused. Let the words sink in. Mr. Lynch, you wanted your money. You went to the press. You told the world you were a loving grandfather betrayed by an ungrateful daughter. You said family should mean something. Catherine's eyes were cold. Her voice was steel. You're right. Family should mean something, but you don't get to decide what that is. Not anymore. Jamie does. Melissa does. The people who stayed. The people who loved him when you refused to. They get to decide what family means. The room erupted. Not quite applause, more like a collective exhalation, a release of tension, agreement, validation. One person started clapping, Uncle George, standing in the back, his hands coming together slowly, deliberately, loud. Then another person joined, then another. Within seconds, the entire room was applauding. 300 people, standing ovation, cameras flashing, the sound overwhelming. 2 minutes, 30 seconds. The applause didn't stop. My father stood frozen in the middle of it, tears on his face, cameras aimed at him, everyone watching his humiliation. At 8:16 p.m., he turned and saw me. I'd stepped out from backstage, Jamie beside me, his hand in mine. Our eyes met. First time in 7 years. First eye contact since November 12th, 2016. My father took one step toward me. His mouth opened, like he wanted to say something. Then he stopped, turned, and walked out. Bradley's seat was empty. He'd already left. Vanessa followed my father out. The three of them gone. Uncle George pushed through the crowd, reached us, pulled me and Jamie into a hug. "You did it," he whispered. "You told the truth." The applause continued. 2 minutes, 45 seconds. Then finally, slowly, it faded. Catherine smiled at me from the podium, a small, satisfied smile. We'd told the truth, in front of everyone, with evidence, with Jamie's voice, with 6 cameras recording. My father's lie was dead, and the truth was alive. At 10:30 p.m., the grand hall was empty. The 300 guests had gone home. The press had gotten their stories. The cameras had stopped recording. 4 people remained: Catherine, Mrs. Jamie, Uncle George. We sat in folding chairs below Jamie's painting, the blue and gold swirls illuminated by a single spotlight. Beautiful. Valuable. No longer cheap. Jamie typed on his communication device, showed me the screen. "Is Grandpa sad now?" I looked at my son, 12 years old enough to understand what had happened tonight, old enough to know we'd exposed his grandfather's cruelty publicly, old enough to feel complicated things about it. "I think so, honey," I said. Jamie typed again. "Good. Maybe now he understands what cheap feels like." My son, who'd been called cheap 7 years ago, who'd counted every day of abandonment, who still loved his grandfather enough to paint him hope mixed with sadness. My son had just delivered justice with 8 words. Catherine showed me her phone. The art news article had been updated. New headline: Museum director exposes family's 7-year abuse of autistic artist. Jessica Alvarez had written a correction. An apology. A retraction of my father's lies. The article had 2,300 shares in 45 minutes. The video clip from the exhibition was trending on social media. 18,000 views in 2 hours. The truth was spreading faster than the lie. At 11:02 p.m., my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Gerald. I didn't answer. I listened to the voicemail later that night. At home, in Jamie's room. While he slept beneath the painting that started everything, Gerald's voice was breaking, cracked, barely recognizable. "Melissa, it's your father. 8-second pause. Breathing. The sound of someone trying not to cry and failing. "I saw Jamie's video. I heard every word. I didn't know. I mean, I knew, but I didn't understand what I'd done to him. What I'd done to you." His voice broke completely. "I'm sorry. I know that's not enough. I know sorry doesn't fix 7 years. Doesn't fix what I said. What I did. What I didn't do." Another pause. Longer this time. 12 seconds. "Can I see him? Please. I need to see my grandson. I need to tell him I'm sorry. I need him to know I was wrong. About everything. About him. About you. About what matters." The voicemail timestamp showed 1:38 total. Gerald had taken 98 seconds to say what he could have said 7 years ago in 5. "I'm sorry." I listened to it 3 times, then I deleted it. I didn't call him back. Not that night. I woke up at 6:15 a.m. to someone knocking on my door. A courier. Premium service. $85 delivery fee, I'd learn later. An envelope. Thick, expensive paper. My father's handwriting on the front. 3 pages. Handwritten, his handwriting shaky, less controlled than usual. Dear Melissa, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I watched Jamie's video 12 times last night. 12 times. Each time I saw more clearly what I've done. I was afraid. Afraid of your son because he's different. Afraid I wouldn't know how to love him properly. Afraid I would fail as a grandfather to a child with special needs. So I chose not to try. I chose not to love him at all. I told myself it was your fault for being dramatic that night, for making a scene, for overreacting. But it was me. It's always been me. I'm sorry isn't enough, but it's all I have. I'm sorry for calling his painting cheap. I'm sorry for 7 years of silence. I'm sorry for missing his childhood, for missing the chance to know him, for missing you. I don't know if you'll ever let me see him. I don't know if I deserve to see him, but I'm asking. Please, let me meet my grandson. Let me tell him I was wrong. Your father, Gerald. I read it 3 times, put it in a drawer, closed the drawer. He sent another letter the next day. December 17th. 9:15 a.m. An email from Bradley. Subject line, what you've done. Melissa, I don't know what you think you've accomplished, but Dad hasn't eaten in 2 days. He's devastated. You could have handled this privately. Instead, you humiliated him in front of 300 people and the press. You turned a family matter into a public spectacle. Congratulations. You got your revenge. You made Dad cry on camera. You destroyed his reputation. I hope it was worth it. He's asking to see Jamie. You should let him. He's 67 years old. He made a mistake 7 years ago. People make mistakes. You're being vindictive and cruel by refusing to even talk to him. This family is broken now, and it's your fault. Dad's devastated. I'm disappointed in you. And frankly, I want nothing to do with someone who would do this to their own father. Don't contact me again. Bradley. 487 words. Mentioned my father's pain 14 times. Mentioned Jamie's pain 0 times. I forwarded the email to Uncle George without comment. He called immediately. Bradley's always been blind, he said. Don't let this get to you. It's not, I said. And I meant it. Bradley's opinion stopped mattering 7 years ago. I didn't reply to the email. December 18th. Catherine called, asked to meet in person. We met at a coffee shop near the museum. She slid a folder across the table. Job offer, she said. Curator position. Neurodivergent artist program. You'd build it from scratch. Choose the artists. Design the exhibitions. Tell the stories that need telling. I opened the folder. Contract. Salary, $185,000 per year. Benefits, education budget of $15,000 annually, 3 times my current salary. You'd be perfect, Catherine said. You understand the artists, you've lived their world. You could change how museums approach accessibility, representation, value. I closed the folder, pushed it back across the table. I appreciate it, Catherine, more than you know. But my place is with the kids at the center. They need me more than a museum does. Catherine smiled, like she'd expected my answer, like she'd wanted to hear it. I knew you would say that, she said. But I had to ask. She handed me another envelope, smaller. This is from Jamie's trust fund, first distribution. I opened it. A letter from Principal Thomas Brennan, the trustee Catherine had appointed. Independent. No family connections. No conflicts of interest. Monthly distributions of $1,200 for approved therapy expenses. Principal protected. Projected growth. 6% annually. Estimated value at Jamie's 18th birthday. $4.1 million. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't have to choose between Jamie's therapy and groceries. The Children's Developmental Center gave me a raise the next week. $54,500, $2,500 more than before. Not much. But they'd done it to show support, to acknowledge what I'd been through. I didn't take Catherine's job, but I took Jamie's future, the one his grandfather tried to steal, the one Catherine protected. That was enough. June 15th, 2024. Jamie's second exhibition. Smaller venue this time. 80-person capacity, intimate, respectful. 12 new paintings, created between January and May, each one exploring the relationship between color, emotion, and memory. Blue, gold, red, green, patterns within patterns. Mathematical precision disguised as chaos. The museum placard read, Jamie Lynch, age 12, artist. These 12 paintings were created between January to May 2024. Each explores the relationship between color, emotion, and memory. Jamie has autism spectrum disorder and communicates primarily through his art. 4 press outlets attended. Their coverage was respectful, focused on Jamie's talent, not on the drama, not on my father. Jamie's vocabulary had grown to 156 words, up from 89 6 months ago. His confidence had grown even more. Dr. Nguyen said the exhibition in December had been therapeutic, validating. He'd been heard. Uncle George attended. Of course. He stood in front of every painting, studied each one, teared up twice. And there was someone else, someone I didn't expect. Between December and June, my father sent 14 letters, total. I read 3. Letter 1, December 16th. The apology, 3 pages. I've already told you about that. Letter 7, March 12th. Shorter, 2 pages. He wrote about memories. Jamie as a baby. Before the diagnosis. Before the fear. Small moments Gerald hadn't thought about in years. Holding Jamie for the first time. Jamie's first laugh. The way Jamie used to reach for him. I had him, Gerald wrote. And I let him go. Because I was afraid. I threw away my grandson because I was afraid of being inadequate. And I became inadequate by choice. I read that one twice. Put it in the same drawer as the first. Letter 14, May 30th. Different tone. Acceptance. Dear Melissa, this is my 14th letter. I don't know if you've read any of them. I don't expect a response. I just need you to know. I see him now. I see Jamie. Not my fear. Not my shame. Not my disappointment that he isn't what I expected. Him. I see him. I watched a video of his new exhibition online. His work is extraordinary. He's extraordinary. I spent 7 years being afraid of what I didn't understand. Now I understand I wasted 7 years. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a relationship. I just want you to know I finally see what you've always seen. That my grandson is brilliant. That my daughter is strong. That I failed you both. I'm sorry. I'll keep being sorry for the rest of my life. Your father, Gerald. I didn't respond to letter 14, but I didn't throw it away either. June 15th, 7:10 p.m. The exhibition opening. 80 guests, low-key. Jamie was more comfortable with smaller crowds. I was talking to Mrs. Foster when I saw him. At the back of the room, standing alone, not approaching, just present. Gerald, my father, 67 years old, gray hair, plain suit, not Tom Ford, something simple, less expensive. He stood 35 feet from Jamie, watching, his eyes on his grandson's paintings, not approaching, not interrupting, just watching. 20 minutes. He stayed exactly 20 minutes, never moved closer, never tried to talk to us. At 7:30 p.m. he left, walked to the exit, walked, stopped at the security desk, handed something to the guard, then left. 5 minutes later, the security guard approached me. Ma'am, an older gentleman asked me to give you this. He said his name was Gerald. He didn't want to disturb you. An envelope. I opened it. A check, $10,000, made out to Children's Developmental Center. A note. 1 sentence. For Jamie's classmates, I can't undo the past. But maybe I can help their futures. I stared at the check, at the note, at my father's handwriting. Uncle George read it over my shoulder. "He's trying," George said quietly. "I know," I said. Trying didn't erase 7 years, but it was something. Something small. Something I hadn't expected. Bradley cut contact completely after his December 17th email. 0 calls, 0 texts, 0 emails, 6 months of absolute silence. Uncle George reported that Bradley and my father also weren't speaking. The family fracture was complete. Gerald had lost both his children. In April, Vanessa filed for divorce. Uncle George heard through mutual friends. Bradley had apparently become increasingly angry, bitter. Blamed my father for the family's public humiliation. Blamed me for exposing it. Bradley moved to Boston in May. Started over. New city, new life. No contact with anyone from the family except occasional texts to Vanessa about divorce proceedings. I don't miss Bradley. I never really had him to begin with. Late June. Jamie and I were sitting in his room. The original painting still hung on the wall, blue and gold. The painting that changed everything. Jamie typed on his device, showed me the screen. "Mom, can Grandpa come see my paintings?" I was surprised. "Why do you want that, honey?" He typed, slow, deliberate. "Because I made one for him. Blue and gold again. But this time the gold is bigger." I looked at him. My 12-year-old son, who'd been called cheap, who'd been abandoned, who'd counted every day, who still had the capacity to hope. "The gold is bigger," he typed. "Gold is hope. Hope is bigger now." I thought about my father's 14 letters, the check for $10,000, the 20 minutes at the exhibition, the distance he kept, respecting our space, not demanding, just present. I thought about 7 years of silence, about the word cheap, about every missed birthday and Christmas, about 2,556 days. "I'll think about it," I told Jamie. He nodded, then typed, "Take your time. I waited 2,556 days. I can wait more." My son, 12 years old, showing me more grace than I knew how to access. I don't know if I'll ever call my father back. I don't know if forgiveness is possible. What I do know is this. Jamie is thriving. His art is recognized. His voice is heard. The trust fund is secure. $2,640,000 growing at 6% annually. His future is protected. The truth is public. 6 cameras recorded it. 18,000 people watched it. The lie is dead. The record is corrected. Uncle George visits every Sunday. Unchanged. Constant. The family member who actually showed up. Catherine checks in monthly, sends opportunities, exhibition invitations. She's still watching out for us, still protecting. And my father is writing letters, attending exhibitions from a distance, sending checks, trying in his inadequate way to make amends. I'm not ready to forgive him. Maybe I never will be. But I'm finally free. Free from waiting for his approval. Free from hoping he'll change. Free from carrying the weight of his shame. Free from the fear that somehow, despite everything, he was right about Jamie. About me. About what matters. The painting was never cheap. My son was never cheap. His love was never cheap. And I don't need my father to understand that anymore. Jamie understands it. I understand it. The world understands it. That's enough. For now, that's enough.